Most people think smart money is about paying less, finding the cheaper option, waiting for the sale, comparing prices, saving $20 here, $50 there, maybe 100 if it feels worth the effort. And sometimes that does matter. But one of the biggest differences between normal earners and wealthy people is this. Normal earners often optimize for price. Wealthy people optimize for time, not because they don't care about money, because they understand something most people learn too late. A bad price might cost you once, but bad time decisions can cost you for years. That's the part most people miss. If something saves you $40 but steals 3 hours, your real cost may not be lower. If something looks cheap but creates friction, delay, stress, or mental clutter, it may actually be expensive. And once you understand that, a lot of rich people behavior starts making more sense. This is not about wasting money. It's about understanding what money is actually protecting. For most people, money is treated like the main resource. For wealthy people, money is often treated like a tool that protects more valuable resources: time, attention, energy, decision quality, execution speed. That's why rich people often make choices that look irrational from the outside. They pay for convenience faster. They delegate earlier. They remove friction more aggressively. They buy back time before most people think they've earned the right to do it. And no, that doesn't mean every expensive choice is smart. It means they are measuring a different cost. There are three ways wealthy people think about this that most people don't. The first is that they understand time compounds differently than money. Everyone talks about compound interest, but almost nobody talks about compound time. Oh, if you save 1 hour this week, that doesn't sound like much. But if you repeatedly remove 1 or 2 hours of low value friction every week, you create something much bigger: more energy, more focus, more consistent execution, more room to think, more room to build. That is not just convenience, that is capacity. And capacity is one of the most underrated wealth advantages in the world. A person who finishes work and still has mental energy can build differently than someone who finishes every day already drained. That's why the same income can produce completely different outcomes. One person saves money in isolated transactions. Another person protects time in ways that improve every future decision. That second effect compounds. The second thing wealthy people understand is that cheap can be expensive if it creates drag. This is where a lot of middle class money decisions go wrong. People compare prices very carefully, but they ignore the cost of delay, mental load, and repeated inconvenience. A cheaper apartment that adds 50 minutes of commuting every day. A deal that requires constant maintenance. A lower cost tool that breaks your workflow. A cheap purchase that has to be replaced twice. A system that looks efficient on paper but keeps slowing your real life down. Those costs are rarely visible in the moment, but they show up in output, in stress, in missed opportunities, in lower consistency, in worse career performance, in less energy left for building anything outside your job. That is why price alone is such a dangerous metric. Price tells you what you paid once. It does not tell you what it keeps costing you. That is the real question. Not how much is it, but what will this keep taking from me? The third thing wealthy people understand is that time protection improves decision quality. This is huge because most people think financial mistakes come from greed or bad habits. Sometimes they do, but a lot of expensive mistakes come from exhaustion, from being rushed, from having no margin, from trying to decide important things while mentally overloaded. That's when people accept bad financing. That's when they keep bad subscriptions. That's when they delay important moves. That's when they say yes to things that feel manageable now but create bigger pressure later. When your time is constantly fragmented, your decisions get weaker. And weaker decisions are expensive. This is why wealthy people don't just buy products, they buy fewer interruptions, fewer repeated tasks, fewer preventable frictions, fewer decisions that drain attention. That doesn't mean luxury. It means they understand that protecting cognitive bandwidth is an economic advantage. If this is already changing how you think about money, subscribe. On this channel, we don't just talk about earning more. We talk about the hidden mechanics that actually make people richer or keep them stuck. So, how do you use this without pretending you're rich? Start with 3 tests. First, what is one cheap thing in your life that keeps stealing time every single week? Second, what recurring task could you simplify, automate, or remove instead of manually solving forever? And third, are you optimizing for lower price or lower drag? That question matters more than most people think, because the middle class is often taught to feel guilty about spending, but wealthy people are often trained to evaluate leverage. That is a very different mindset, and it creates very different outcomes. The goal is not to act rich. The goal is to stop measuring money in a way that keeps you stuck. Sometimes the cheapest option is the smartest one. But sometimes the cheaper option quietly costs you momentum, focus, and future opportunity. And that is not a small difference, because wealth is not just built by spending less. It is also built by protecting the resources that let you earn, think, negotiate, and execute better over time. That's why rich people often care more about time than price. Not because they don't understand money, because they understand what money is supposed to protect. And once you understand that, you stop asking only one question, not just how much does this cost, but what is this decision doing to the quality of my life, my energy, and my future output? Because sometimes the most expensive thing in your life is not what you paid too much for. It's what you kept choosing because it looked cheap.